Thank you for joining the webinar. I am Guillem Arís, Director at Autoocupació, an NGO based in Catalonia supporting underserved entrepreneurs since 1986. I am representing here EMAP, the Network for Migrant Entrepreneurs to Scale Up and Grow, funded by the European Union under the COSME program. You can find more information about the network in our website. I will share the website later in the chat. If you're interested in receiving more information about the MAP activities, I would like you to invite you to share your contact details in the chat or to contact us through the MAP website. As part of our activities, we are delivering 3 webinars to support practitioners to better design and deliver their programs for migrant entrepreneurs. Last Tuesday, we had a great webinar led by Chris Massey on how to train migrant entrepreneurs, and today we will focus on access to finance, and we are very lucky to have Klaas Molenaar leading the webinar. Next Tuesday, at the same time, the webinar will focus on mentoring programs and will be led by Professor Bob Garvey. As I said, today we will discuss about access to finance for migrant entrepreneurs. During the first part of the webinar, Klaas will share his ideas and opinions about the barriers that migrant entrepreneurs face for accessing the funding they need to start and grow a business in Europe. And during the second part of the webinar, we want to explore together how we can improve their chances for accessing the funding and equal opportunities with local entrepreneurs. So I would like to invite you all to actively participate, asking Klaas whatever you want to know during the first part of the webinar, and sharing your opinions, your knowledge, and your experience during the second part. For fostering participation, I would like you can ask directly, ask a question in the chat, but I would prefer you to raise your hand. In the Zoom, you can click in the participants button, and then there you have a button to raise your hand, and India will unmute your micro and you can talk, and we will have a more open discussion than just Klaas answering the questions in the chat. I want to announce that the webinar will be recorded and accessible in the EMAP website in a few days. And now it's time to briefly introduce Klaas Molenaar. I knew Klaas for 10 years ago when I started joining the European Microfinance Network, and he was its president. During this time, we met in many different European countries, joining entrepreneurship and microfinance events, webinars, and so on. And we become good friends. Klaas is passionate about inclusive entrepreneurship and access to finance, innovation, and multiculturalism. He's an experienced consultant and researcher, and a great teacher and facilitator, sometimes a bit provocative, and helping the audience to think out of the box. Klaas, please be yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Guillem. Welcome to everybody. After this sales talk by Guillem, it will be very difficult for me maybe to provoke you and to create a little bit of open mind about access to finance, but I will try to do so. I will first of all share a few thoughts about access to finance and how we look to migrant and refugee entrepreneurs and how we are not looking to them. And then I will share you a few insights that I have obtained over the past years when I was working in 2 projects related to migrant entrepreneurship and refugee entrepreneurship. One is the European Migrant Entrepreneurship Network project, in which I'm leading the community of practice on access to finance. And the second one is on creating capacity for young migrant entrepreneurs under the YMCB project, where I'm dealing with the issue of financial education. But over the past 35 years, I have also been engaged in a number of organizations and companies dealing with migrant entrepreneurship. And when we talk about access to finance, I have come to understand myself that it's not so much about money, but it's about seeing the capacities of our client group, understanding that the financial landscape has become very much diverse, and that specific programs for migrant entrepreneurs may lead to segregation in society. And that's also why, given my introduction, the title, it's all about capacities, diversity, and mainstreaming. It's as simple as that. And I will end up with a number of statements that, in essence, probably reflect what I'm thinking. And at the same time, you may then say, well, I'm not agreeing with that at all. The first thing that I would like you to think about is, if we talk about entrepreneurship development for refugee entrepreneurs and migrant entrepreneurs, and I'm not going to dwell upon definitions of migrant and refugees, but I'm talking more about people who have arrived in our society, who are adding to our society, who want to participate, who want to contribute to it. And we very often look at them from the moment they have arrived. And then we start talking about, you know, they should start a business. They should be better off if they create their own work. But maybe it's not like that. Maybe we have to look a little bit at an earlier stage. Maybe the business development starts long before arrival. I don't think if you arrive in a country, then you walk around and you look around and you say, oh, let me start a business. Probably if one has to flee his country or decides to migrate, he or she has as well already thought about what he wants to do in life and how he or she would like to build up life. And if I look at the better, or say more interesting practices in supporting migrant entrepreneurs, those are the programs that take already in consideration the capacities and capabilities and asset base of migrant and refugee entrepreneurs that they have built up long before they arrive. And of course, there are people who have to pack and go suddenly, but even those, they might have already built up an experience as an entrepreneur. They might have already thought about their life. They might have probably already taken preparatory steps to be able to travel. And it's not, it's not so effective of looking at people when they arrive and say, well, they have nothing and they are destitute. So let us start working with them as were they people without any possibilities, capabilities, and capacities, and then start to build up. I think we would be far more effective in our programs and also in access to finance if we look already at the persons with their asset base, with their capital base. So it might be a person that already through the internet has transferred savings to an internet bank or a foreign account, which he or she can draw upon arrival. So the pre-departure stage, before traveling, I think it's very important to take into consideration when we want to assist people and when we want to lead them to starting, and when we are asking ourselves whether they, what kind of financing they need. That's the first thing I think you have to ask yourself when you take this in consideration. The second thing is, I think there is something that sometimes, that makes me angry. That and a few years ago, I also wrote an editorial introduction on one of the newsletters of the European Microfinance Network, where I think we should stop talking or thinking in the me reflex, by asking ourselves or stating that a migrant is best off with microfinance, and that a migrant is somebody who's poor, has nothing, so the only way for him or her to start a business is to offer him or her a microloan. But then we forget that there is a huge universe of entrepreneurs, of people with different capabilities. That can be necessity-driven persons, but it can also be people who are looking at opportunities, that are looking at growth, that have growth potential, that looking at another way of life. And I think we would be better off if we first start segmenting our client base. And over the past years, I have come to accept that the segmentation that I present here on this screen might be very useful for you. There are people who are trying to survive, and they see self-employment as something out of necessity, either in a hybrid form or a part-time form. And they will drop this the moment they are offered a well-paid job. But there are also opportunity-driven people who want to really become a solo self-employed person without any intention to employ people. Then there are, and that's the second group that's I think particularly under the younger migrants, we find they see self-employment also as a lifestyle. They see it as a way of developing their own capabilities. And then we have the traditional forms of the micro entrepreneur who's opportunity driven, the small entrepreneur, growth oriented, and maybe also you will have under our client base medium entrepreneurs that have already had a long history in entrepreneurship and are really very focused on growth oriented. Now, if you talk about access to finance, you first have to segment your client base because each of them will have different financial needs and financing needs. And if we do not take this in consideration, we're starting to offer a one-fits-all product, which probably doesn't fit anybody. Because if you're a growth-oriented small entrepreneur, you have a broader needs of financing needs than if you are just trying to survive. On the survival level, necessity-driven, maybe you can just start a small trading activity with a few €1,000. But if you offer this to somebody who wants to set up a business to say on woodworking and want to employ 2 or 3 people, you are leading to underfinancing. So I think the first step for ourselves is to, besides understanding that entrepreneurship starts really before arrival, also segment our markets and segment our client base. And also accepting that for each client base, we need different financing instruments. I made recently a kind of a comparison between entrepreneurs and migrant refugee entrepreneurs. And I won't go over all these details. I will share this table with you. But if you look at the different stages, then you will see that over time, the financing needs of what I call, say, locally based entrepreneurs and those that are just recently arrived, that over time, their financing needs become pretty similar. They are not going to differ so much. There is some difference in the first stages. At the first stages, there is already, I'd say, pre-arrival, there are these needs of setting aside money which you need to after arrival, documenting your track records. This is a very essential element in financing, and I would like to refer those of you who want to know more about that to initiatives by, for instance, UNHCR that have worked with what they call digital safes, where you save your information in the cloud and where you regain control over your information, which is very important if you want to negotiate with financing parties later, and if you want to demonstrate your track record or your financial records or your entrepreneurial records. Also, the new internet models offer very interesting opportunities for people to transfer ready money that they can eventually invest in businesses. Unfortunately, one of the biggest barriers then is that upon arrival, public authorities treat the newcomers a little bit in a yeah, in a not entrepreneurial way, which lead also to a kind of attitude of not wanting to disclose money that is available, because it might affect your position, your social status, your refugee status, your migrant status. And I think we forego a lot of opportunities here by not allowing people to make use of their funds that they have set aside already before. I invite everybody also to look at this table, and if you think about other things that are interesting to highlight the difference between local entrepreneurs and newcoming entrepreneurs, I would very much appreciate it. This is a kind of a co-creation process, probably over time, where we want together understand more about how to improve access to finance. Just to show you how I'm working with this particular fit. Before departure, a lot of things happen that, as I said already before, that can help to improve access. And there are traditional solutions and internet-based solutions. Look at this table, I would say to all of you, and see whether you can agree with this and whether you have other ideas. When it comes to financing, this particular slide is probably the most important one for all of us to understand. Financing and access to finance is much more than just offering a product. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and over the past 24, 30 years, I have made use of a lot of different financial sources. I've made use of loans from friends. I've raised my own capital. I've obtained a long-term loan from a bank, a short-term loan from a bank, an overdraft. I have participated in local savings schemes to set aside money that eventually can be used for business activities. And migrant entrepreneurs and refugee entrepreneurs as well, they live and operate in a very interesting world. They probably have more opportunities for financing than most entrepreneurs have. First of all, they operate in the diaspora world. And in the diaspora world, a lot of financing initiatives take place. There are diaspora funds, there are peer-to-peer activities, there are crowdfunding, and their crowds are probably more diverse than if I would set up a crowdfund operation in my own hometown in The Hague, and I would use only my Dutch friends. A refugee and a migrant entrepreneur has the advantage that he or she has crossed borders and is able to mobilize and generate funds, mobilize more friends all over the world, and mobilize funds from different sources. And they can mix that with the traditional forms of financing, provided they know the way. And I think here comes one of the major bottlenecks on access to financing, that is knowing your way, knowing where to go, which is something that takes place in the first years when you arrive, when you are trying to find a place in society to participate and to work. First of all, when you arrive and you have funds, or you have access to funds and you want to use it, you have to, as a migrant refugee entrepreneur, to struggle with public authorities that more or less push you into one direction and say, well, you know, you have to follow this program. And unfortunately, as I see it happening around me, there are also microfinance and development finance organizations that have the same tendency to thinking that a particular program is to be followed, and that program will then eventually lead you to a one-fits-all product. But they forego that, and they do not acknowledge that the migrant refugee entrepreneur might have access to other funding and might even have its own funding. So you could probably combine it and say, how can I combine this funding? But this combining is only possible if this information asymmetry between the new client and the financial institutions is being resolved. Because at the financial institutions and the support organizations, there is probably not a clear understanding of what the entrepreneur can do, who she is, what kind of capabilities, capacities, and asset base he or she has, and what would be the best way of combining. So I think this particular issue of creating the right package, and offering the right information is the most relevant on access to finance. Because if I'm a growth-oriented entrepreneur, I need short-term funding, long-term funding. I need capital. I need an increase in my capital. I need a well-balanced financial structure. So I have to look at the proper mix. And what I do not want to do, because particularly if I'm a newcomer, is to go around and ask every time what can be offered. My real disadvantage is that I know less about the possibilities. So the big challenge for financial institutions and those who are concerned about access to finance for migrant entrepreneurs and refugee entrepreneurs is to develop a kind of a broker role and develop a kind of an information role whereby you really sit down with your clients, ask yourself now, what are your assets? What is missing? And where, and that you then as the broker look around and whether you can find the different financial sources who are willing to put their different eggs in that basket, and that you make your omelette then for the entrepreneur, and that the entrepreneur is offered all at once, and that he doesn't have to negotiate and present all kinds of complicated business plans, financing applications to different parties. So maybe the most effective role for financial intermediaries in the future will be to develop this brokerage function and develop services, or maybe that's also something that developmental-oriented financial institutions and microfinance institutions could develop, that you develop this capacity to sit down with the client and see what is the best financial package, and that you do not expect the client to negotiate at all levels, but that you, on behalf of him or her, start this process. It might even be a business model, so that you can charge for this. If I would be, I would set up, say, for instance, if you ask me to set up a financial institution, I think I have a more attractive business model if I'm the brokerage function than in offering loans or microloans or long-term loans, because then my risk probably is higher and my earning capacity is less. So I would go into that right package system. Then,
Klaas,
yes?
sorry, you have a question from Sylvie regarding preparing or supporting entrepreneurs before departure from their own country. The question is in the chat, and she asked if it would be better to help them to create a business in their countries of origin than coming to Europe.
Okay. Migration is something that is part of our life and part of our society. I don't think this is a question to raise. If you have decided to migrate for one reason or another, and if you arrive, then I think we talk about the newcomers that have come. And of course, you as a development organization, you can say, well, I want to stop the flow for whatever reason, and I want to develop something in a country of origin or residence. But that's another way of looking at development issues. In our European society, I think we have to accept that people come and go, and migration is a circular process. So people will come for a number of years, and I think we would benefit in our society if we try to generate an added value yeah, and acknowledge added value that people can bring. For the coming 10, 20 years, the situation will not change. Every time people will arrive. It might be a group will be refugees, that they will arrive definitely, but there will also be migrants. And in some sectors, it's even needed to have people coming from abroad to our society. Our society probably will be less productive and economically strong if we would stop everything. But that's another discussion. But the discussion whether you develop in Europe or abroad, it depends on what is your main objective as organization. And if my objective in society is to offer finance to entrepreneurs, I think you have to understand my clientele, and amongst the clientele you have as well migrants. I don't know whether that's satisfies Sylvie, but maybe we can enter into another long debate on that. Yeah. Is Sylvie's microphone open, or is it not possible, Guillaume?
Yeah, Sylvie, if you want to talk.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Your statement sounded to me a bit like you go scouting for potentially high-flying entrepreneurs, and this would be kind of a migration criteria for letting them in. And this I find a bit dangerous.
Yeah,
so if we already go there and we pick the best ones and encourage them to come, because I don't think that it's clear-cut. People might toy with the idea of leaving their country, but I don't think it's an easy decision. So if you just intervene there, I'm not sure that this would be a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm rather in favor, if there's stability in the country, then to develop local economies and help them to develop business cluster and thrive over there.
I agree with you, Sylvie. My plea is definitely, when people arrive, really make a clear distinction between those that really have strong entrepreneurial capabilities and less, and match your program very well to the client base, and do not treat all migrants in the same way. I think that's the key of my message in this part. They are not the same. They're all different.
Yes. If you would say they are different, I entirely agree. I mean, some people have more capabilities and assets than others.
Yeah.
I just want to object us to go out scouting in countries outside Europe, fishing for most successful entrepreneurs in order to sell our financial products. I think that's counterproductive.
But those successful entrepreneurs, they will find their way as well to our society. Yeah. But I have what I definitely have seen, and I really regret that it's still happening, that very capable persons are being treated as worthy, and they are not being treated as people with an entrepreneurial background, with a background in enterprise, with capabilities, even with assets already they have, and that they are pushed into a direction which is very much below their standards. And then we lose opportunities in society. We can benefit much more if we make a clear segmentation of our market.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Over the past years, I've come to a number of understandings, and I put them in some kind of reflections, which I just want to share with everybody here and see whether you would like to contribute to that. One of them is that the migrant refugee entrepreneur does not exist. It's part also of the discussion we just had. And also, migrant refugee entrepreneurs are not poor, and they do not need microfinance. Migrant and refugee entrepreneurs do not start thinking about self-employment upon arrival. Migrant refugee entrepreneurs do not need single products. They need baskets. And migrant refugee entrepreneurs prefer mainstream services. this part I would like to dwell upon a little bit. What I have seen, for instance, in there's one of the programs that I've been running, which was called Intent, where we were supporting migrant entrepreneurs setting up a business in the country of origin, but we also had a side project, Seon, where we were supporting refugee entrepreneurs setting up businesses in the Netherlands. That the moment our programs became visible and became a little bit larger as they grew, it created resistance amongst the local populations in either the countries of origin where people started a business or in the Netherlands, because they looked at it as were the migrant refugee entrepreneurs being privileged and being given more support. And the second thing that was happening is that by offering special programs, and even with, for instance, there was a debate whether we should offer our programs in the Netherlands in the Turkish, Berber, or Arab local languages of the migrant entrepreneurs. We contributed to segregation in society. And we had problems in ensuring that they would integrate further. And besides that, the mainstream programs for local entrepreneurs, they are larger and they are better funded than the special programs. So I've come to make a very strong plea that in order to create proper access to finance, you may argue that in the beginning you need special programs, but eventually you have to mainstream and have to dovetail them into general programs for entrepreneurs. As one of the entrepreneurs once said at a conference, do not treat us as refugees, treat us as entrepreneurs. And that implies also, let us be eligible for the mainstream services as soon as possible. Now, this having said, I think that all relates also to the first point of my introduction. Said, well, be sure that you segment properly, because if you segment properly, then also it will be easier to see where special programs are needed and where you can lead people very fast already to mainstream. Having said this again, is that access to finance is not an issue of offering money. Access to finance is related to understanding your clients, understanding their needs, understanding in which phase they are, what kind of capabilities and entrepreneurial qualities they have, what kind of dreams they have that they can come true, and what kind of financial needs they have, and then also looking at what is then the right financing mix to offer. If you look at that in that way, they are then less migrants and more entrepreneurs, and then identifying the barriers that they face is important. And very often we will find out that the barriers are not with them, but with us, with our programs, or with our way of looking at our client base. So I make again a plea here that look at a little bit from a distance and see whether your clients are really being offered the right financial services. Yeah.
Klaas, one question. Why you say that migrants and refugees, they don't need microfinance?
Yes.
I can understand that not all of them are poor.
Yeah.
But there are objective reasons about lack of credit history, like lack of warranties, sometimes, many times. And I feel that microfinance is a good solution for them. Not for all, but for some of them.
Yeah. And okay, knowing how you work also in your program, Guillaume, in Compassion, you're right, because the essence, the justification for having microfinance in society is that it's about understanding that some people are being denied access to finance. But so microfinance is not an issue of offering microloans. Microfinance is offering the right financial product at an affordable price in the right way. And if your microfinance institution is focused on that, then a migrant or refugee entrepreneur would be better off than if he would go to a traditional bank or financial institution. But if microfinance is focused on offering small loans because it's based on the belief that small loans are good, then I think you can only attend a small segment of the universe of migrant and refugee entrepreneurs, because there are many of them who need more than just a small loan to be repaid in 2 or 3 years. They need, for instance, permanent working capital, which microfinance institutions cannot offer. They need probably participation in capital, which microfinance institutions cannot offer. They probably need investment loans to be repaid over the 10 years, which microfinance institutions cannot offer if they are focused on small loans repayable over a short period. So that's why I say they are not poor. Some of them, maybe, and they need more than just a micro loan. Does that answer a little bit your question, Guillaume?
Yes, thank you. We have in the webinar Nicola Benaglio, that is Head of Research at the EMN, the European Microfinance Network. Nicola, would you want to add something?
Thank you, Aris. I had a question for Klaas. I was very interested in this presentation, and I was wondering who can play this brokerage role, and which are the organization that can be involved in this, because I imagine that you need an organization that centralize all the information and then put the entrepreneur in contact with a network of other organizations that can work with entrepreneur, offering this package, this basket of options.
Yeah, it's a very relevant question, Nicola. I don't, but you use the word centralize. And there are a number of questions here. Do you have to centralize it? Which organization would be best to do so? And what is then the activity to be undertaken? I think it is a local or regionally based function, because if I am a migrant entrepreneur, a refugee entrepreneur, I just arrived, say, in the region of, Milan, then my limitation is that I do not know so much what's happening in Milano. So if in that area Per Micro can inform me well about different possibilities, or can sit down with me and see what are my financial needs, and then explore in Milano who are the different parties that offer financial services, and with them then create that basket, that would be the best way. I don't think you need a central European function there. You need local understanding, and that leads also to the answer to the second question: which are the organizations best to do so? If, for instance, Per Micro would operate in Milan, and I would be the director of Per Micro, I would probably look at this particular business model and say, hey, can we go into brokering? Because if I'm a microfinance institution, my role is to create access to finance. Not to sell microloans, but to create access. And I can probably play a very interesting role as intermediary. But it will also be in, say, in France, where Positive Planet takes up that particular brokerage role, or it can take place in the Netherlands with Credits. Credit sells their own products, but I think they would be better off if they would also link their clients to offer other financial institutions, particularly those that are growing. Does that a little bit match your question, Nicolas?
Yes, thank you very much for the reply.
George?
Yeah, Klaas, thank you very much. I really like the statement: migrant refugees don't need microfinance, because it's really provocative in a way. I would like to just like to add currently we're talking about migrants, refugee of entrepreneurs, but we're not talking really about us, the support organizations or the microfinance organizations. And my question really, and that is a question for us, is really, do we have the right tools to serve migrants and refugee entrepreneurs? Or is it more like we offer certain services like drafting a business plan or providing microcredit? And because we're doing that successfully, that is our tool. But because that is our only tool actually we have, it's more like, because we only have a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. And probably we're not offering the right services. I mean, I don't have the answer to that, but Klaas, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, actually, your question is a little bit also not philosophical, but it touches upon also a strategic question. What will be a role in the future for microfinance institutions? And then I would go a little bit in the line of thinking that our society becomes more and more diverse. And diversity becomes part of every life. And that diversity is also in the entrepreneurial thinking. So the newcomers bring in another way of looking at society, another way of looking at entrepreneurship, and another way of financing. They are probably, they are mobilizing friends, they are building up financial application amongst friends and family and relatives. They are also mobilizing financing from diaspora funds possibilities. And they probably also have a different look at the future. At the same time, also our society changes fast through the technological innovation. So the business life for enterprises becomes shorter. And the way businesses deal with businesses also changes. So as for a microfinance institution or for developmental oriented organizations, the question probably is that how are we going to deal with diversity in society? And also, how are we going to tap from all those new financing technologies and innovations so that we can better match people with their needs with the possibilities? Because in the past, it was very simple. You offer a loan and that it would work. But if I go now to the internet, there are so many different financial opportunities, whether it's on payments, on guarantees, on insurances, on transfer, on short-term loans, on long-term loans. It becomes almost a mer-à-boire, but it's a diversity issue. There's a diversity in finance, and there's diversity in society, and there's diversity in thinking. So the challenge for the organizations, for instance, like the microfinance organizations, becomes to matching diversity and finding your place in society as the organization that really effectively links entrepreneurial potential and the new and diverse entrepreneurial potential with the financial potential. And then the difference between migrant, refugee entrepreneur and local entrepreneur blurs a little bit, becomes a blurred one. Because this is also a challenge for local entrepreneurs. They also are faced this diverse financing network. So I would think, and I would enter then into debate internally in my organization. So what is our future role in this new diverse society? I don't know whether that's is in line with your thinking. Jorge, are you still there?
I think it's a fair question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And my intention was not to be too philosophical here, but really, I think a good starting point is, especially when we talk about access to finance, is where are the actual needs? And it's definitely not just a loan, and it's definitely not just the business plan.
No. A very practical way, for instance, if I come in with my digital safe with all my information locked in that safe, as a microfinance institution, I probably can accept that information faster than a ABN AMRO or an Paribas bank, because they are, in their philosophy, they don't have, or their way of working, they don't have this flexibility to divert from the built-in procedures. So as an MFI, you probably have done a little bit more flexibility to deal with this kind of clientele.
Absolutely.
I don't know whether I've been clear about this mainstream, because this mainstream is related also to this searching for new positions as financial institutions. That let's say differently. I'm afraid a little bit that if we are focused too much on the migrant and refugee entrepreneur per se, that we do not give them the proper support, because if we push them in isolation, they will not participate fully in society, and that would be, I think, a loss for both parties, for both society and for the migrant entrepreneur. The sooner they are mainstreamed, I think, the better we are off, and that requires as well that the mainstream services become a little bit more flexible and a little bit more open to new clientele.
Klaas, the mainstream services are the banks, no?
The mainstream services are any financial service that is open for
Everyone.
Small and medium and micro entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And the danger, okay, if you set up a program for women or for youth or for handicapped or for migrants or for the elderly, the danger is that if you focus too much only on that group and assist them too much, that besides that you can get maybe a reaction of jealousy, that you isolate them too much to look only at their own client group, their own group where they're from. And I think they're better off if you assist them in opening up, and they will opening up more to society if they're participating as a normal client of a general program. So you may have temporarily specific programs to take away particular bottlenecks and barriers to create a level playing field. But the moment the level playing field is there, they shouldn't be treated as migrants and refugees that are engaging in entrepreneurship, but they should be treated as entrepreneurs who happen to be a migrant or a refugee.
I totally agree. Is there any data available about survival rate of companies started by migrant entrepreneurs, about how many migrant entrepreneurs start a company in the European Union, how many migrant entrepreneurs loan applications are approved or rejected by banks, or any information about migrant entrepreneurs loans, repayment and default rates? Is there any information? Maybe you or maybe Nicola from the EMN have any input here?
Let me first answer. My first referral would be that your questions are very crystal clear, Guillaume, and you will find some of the answers in the publications by the OECD on the missing entrepreneur, because there you will find a number of indirectly data and statistics related to this question. But the very specific way you formulate it, you won't find it directly.
Yeah.
Nicola, can you add something to this?
No, I fully agree with this. That application present all the statistics related to the different profile of migrant entrepreneurs, and so there you can find all this relevant information.
Yeah, and besides that, Guillaume, be careful also, because in a number of countries, the general statistics, they do not segregate data on migrant background. In some countries, even it's forbidden because it's very close to discrimination.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But then it's so difficult to really know the difficulties of migrant entrepreneurs in terms of statistics to access to finance in European countries.
Yeah, you can only find qualitative ways of looking at barriers, and then say perceptions. Yeah? Where people say, well, we think these are the perceptions. Yeah, what I've seen over the years is that the prejudgments are those that have to be tackled at both ends, because also the migrant, the refugee entrepreneur, they might have a tendency also to think that people will not assist us, or they will not be open for our applications, or they will not be willing to support us. That is also to be removed. And that's also, I think, a challenge for public authorities and for those that are meeting the newcomers right at the beginning, yeah, to assist them in breaking away from that, say, self-destructive attitude, or self-destructive, yeah, self-fulfilling attitude. Because if you operate like that, you probably won't even approach a mainstream organization.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question for Klaas. I know that this is not the main topic of this webinar, but in all this entrepreneurship journey of migrant entrepreneurs, what is the role played by mentors and coaches and the non-financial services? Because you said that it's not about money here; it's more about providing brokerage role and different variety of services. And what's the role of mentoring and coaching here? How is important?
Yeah, I think it's very important in the say the pre-financing stage, that the coach or mentor looks at his or her client holistically and say, okay, what are your financing needs, and does not operate as a salesman, say for AD, trying to sell the microloan of AD, but that you are really looking at from the point of view of the entrepreneur, what are my financing needs? And that you say, well, you need probably a loan from AD, but you also need additional funding. And also, if the migrant or refugee entrepreneur discloses that he or she has savings and money, yeah, that you are not say disclose that straight away to public authorities. Say, well, this person is less destitute than you thought, so he will or she will lose his social status or refugee status, but that you are, yeah, appreciating it, that that information is being shared, and that, yeah, that if that picture, the total picture, is being used of what is then best for the financing of the enterprise to be set up.
Yes, we will have next Tuesday, we will have the webinar on mentoring, and we will go deep on this. I will like to ask you another question. Do you know any fintech or alternative or innovative source of funding that is successful for and scalable for supporting migrant entrepreneurs in Europe? Because we always talk about fintech, and you are referring to mainstream services. It seems that mainstream services in the future will be through fintech. Do you know any experience that you can share?
Yeah, okay. One of the interesting things that I see happening is something that, for instance, is being set up here in the Netherlands, which is called the ZIDI Circle, Z-I-D-I. It's set up by a very innovatively thinking Kenyan woman who is setting up a kind of a peer-to-peer lending program amongst the diaspora and amongst highly qualified, highly educated diaspora, successful diaspora in the Netherlands, mobilizing their expertise and their capital to invest in SMEs. Now, she is starting to invest in SMEs, small and medium and micro enterprises in Kenya, but she also wants to do this in Europe. It is an initiative, that is, I think, a little bit, under the radar. You don't see it directly because she has no need at all to talk about it with other people. She just does it with her diaspora relatives and friends. But I think it offers a lot of potential because there's a lot of money that can be mobilized there, and a lot of expertise as well. And if you can link that also to local initiatives, I think you will be very effective in creating access to finance, because that's then you mobilize diaspora funding, and if you can then match it with other funding, it becomes very interesting in financing opportunity and growth oriented enterprises. And you can also think about setting up crowdfunding operations by MFIs for migrant entrepreneurs. One of the things that I've learned here is that when I wanted to set up something similar, for instance, for students, is that people that want to participate in crowdfunding do not want to offer the crowdfunding to a third party that administers it and runs it, but they want to have a direct link. So you have to here again look at the brokering role. Yeah. So there are two experiences, or say examples, that I can mention here at this moment. But I think the challenge for us is also to, if we look at it, to broaden our own horizon a little bit and see, well, what our others are doing, and how can we link it to what we are doing as well.
Sure, thank you. Any other question? Okay, so it's time to finish. Thank you very much, Klaas, for sharing your ideas and for being provocative, as always. Thank you all for your participation. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. You will find the webinar recorded in our website, in MM website, in a few days. Thank you, YBI, also for your support for delivering these webinars. And remember that next Tuesday, at the same time, at 1 p.m., you are invited to join the webinar of Mentoring for Migrant Entrepreneurs that will be led by Professor Bob Garvey. And for anything else, you can contact us through the MAP website. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, can I just add something as well?
Yeah, sure.
I'm India from Youth Business International, and we have a call for consultants to work on a young refugee and other migrant entrepreneurs kind of scoping study. So if anyone is interested in that, please go to the Youth Business International website. So yeah, we'd really like people to contribute to that.
Thank you, India.
Thanks.
Klaas, thank you very much. Thank you all.
Again. Thank you again. Thank you for organizing this. I think it's a very relevant topic to look into deeper, all of us.
Thank you. See you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.